I'm typing this post while my girlfriend Clara is driving Sandra and me to meet Robert Spaulding. Yes, my girlfriend is in the picture now, as well, which is part of the reason I'm writing this now, instead of waiting for whatever Robert can tell us, if anything. A lot has happened since I wrote my last post. On Thursday, my parents invited Clara for dinner. She doesn't hang out in her house much. She lives in her own apartment, where we can have more privacy. And besides, she and Leah never quite got along. Before Leah's disappearance, that used to bother me a bit. But in these circumstances, I'm glad for it. At least Clara is safe from Leah, if Leah poses any threat. At first, the dinner went normally. I was kind of afraid that I would see Leah looking at Clara in the same strange way she looked at Sandra and me before. But I didn't notice anything. We all chatted about something. I don't remember what it was. And then, out of nowhere, Leah said, "I wanted to go to the cinema with Sandra on Saturday, but she's unavailable. Jim, would you like to go with me?" I opened my mouth, but didn't say anything. Sandra and I haven't really agreed on any cover-up story for visiting Robert yet, and Leah's question caught me so off guard. I had no idea what to say. I'm sorry, but I already got plans," I managed to say after a while. "Really?" Clara frowned at me. "You didn't mention anything to me." I saw Leah looking at Clara, then at me, and I saw a dawning suspicion on her face. Or maybe I was just paranoid. I hoped my own face didn't show how startled I was. I smiled at Clara and tried to look natural. "Sorry, love, it totally slipped my mind." I was quickly trying to remember anything I could use as a cover story, and I managed to tell Clara about an exhibition in a nearby town which I've been meaning to attend. "Really?" Clara raised eyebrows, and I could tell she didn't believe me for a second. This was bad, but far more important question was, did Leah believe me? I didn't dare look at her while Clara continued talking. "This actually sounds quite interesting. You wouldn't mind if I go with you, will you?" I smiled at her again. "Of course not, love." "In fact, I think I can drive us there," she continued. "You don't have your own car anyway. You'd have to borrow one from your parents." She smiled at my mom, who used this opportunity to scold me, that I didn't tell her or Dad anything either. And when exactly did I plan to mention I would need a car? Clara's expression was even more suspicious. Leah seemed confused but curious. I silently panicked and tried not to look nervous. I really screwed this up. Thankfully, after a while, the topic had changed, and I relaxed a bit again. I offered Clara to stay the night, but she refused. After she left, I messaged Sandra, summed up what just happened, and asked what we should do now. Normally, I would wait to meet up with her in case Leah saw the messages, but this was important and I was panicking a bit. Her response was along the lines of, "That didn't go quite as I hoped, but you'll probably have to let Clara tag along. It's unnecessary to make her upset over this. We'll meet her and explain what's going on. She will probably think we're nuts, but it's better than her thinking you're lying to her." I know Clara would never tell anything to Leah, but I wasn't quite sure if that'd be the best idea. However, I didn't see any other possible solution. So Sandra and I discussed how exactly to proceed on Saturday, and then I went to bed. I couldn't sleep, however. Even though the mild panic stopped, I was still more than a little nervous. And then I heard Leah having a nightmare. Maybe it's strange, but I didn't notice her having nightmares before. Even though that might be because I'm a very heavy sleeper, and once I fall asleep, there's not much that can wake me up. And if she's had any nightmares before, she certainly didn't mention them to me. Now, though, I could hear it clearly. At first, it was a few muffled thumps, but then she started speaking and sounded so distressed that I automatically got up and went to check on her. Our bedrooms were next to each other, but our parents' bedroom was at the other end of the corridor, and there was a high probability that they didn't hear anything. Leah was tossing and turning in her bed, speaking rapidly, not quite screaming, but close to it. "No," she whimpered. "No, don't make me. I don't want to go. Please, no." I was unsure what to do. I never had to deal with a person experiencing a nightmare before. Should I wake her up? As I was trying to decide, she turned again and banged her fist against the wall. I didn't want to risk her injuring herself, so I slowly approached her. But as I was about to shake her, she screamed, "Please, Christopher, don't make me go back." I froze. Christopher? My mind immediately went to my conversation with Sandra. Christopher Dolliard. I was stunned for a few seconds, then I shook my head. There was quite a high possibility that Leah was dreaming about somebody else, and the same name was just a coincidence. I was just going crazy from all of this. At least, that's what I was trying to tell myself, while I stretched my hand out and shook Leah. "Leah, wake up," I said loudly. "You're having a nightmare. You have to wake up." Thankfully, her eyes snapped open at that. She appeared disoriented for a while, then she looked at me, and I nearly gasped. I think it was for the first time since she's returned that her gaze looked completely normal. "Jim?" she whispered, and I saw tears in her eyes. "It was just a dream," I said, trying to comfort her. "It wasn't real." She nodded, then suddenly reached for me and pulled me into a hug. "I'm so glad you're here," she whispered. "You will always be here for me, won't you?" I nodded. I was suddenly overwhelmed by emotions. All those awful months where Leah was missing came back to me, and I was blinking back tears. "Yeah, Leah, I will," I answered. It wasn't until I've comforted her and returned to my room that I remembered I wanted to ask her about Christopher. I was determined to mention it the next chance I got. Fortunately, the next morning we met at breakfast. Normally, Leah got up pretty late, while I was up pretty early because I had to go to work. That day, though, she entered the kitchen just a while after me. She didn't look like she slept much. After the obligatory good mornings, I decided to broach the subject. "Leah," I started. "Yesterday, when you had that nightmare, you mentioned somebody named Christopher." I watched her carefully and saw her tense for just a moment before responding. "What? I don't know any Christopher." "Well, that's strange, because you definitely mentioned one." "Yeah, but like I said, I don't know anyone named Christopher," she said. "Anyway, dreams are weird like that." "Really? What were you dreaming about, anyway? You said, 'Don't make me go back.' What did that mean?" I asked. I could tell she was bluffing. She didn't even look me in the eyes. She raised her voice as she said, "I don't even know anymore, and I don't understand why you should care about that. It was just a stupid dream, okay?" She was getting angry, and in my opinion, a bit too defensive. That had to mean something, but I didn't want to push her more. Alright, I said, backing down a bit. But you're my sister. I want to know if there's something you're upset about. You know you can tell me anything, right? Her eyes softened at that. Of course. She smiled at me, but it was a bit strained. But like I said, I don't even remember that dream anymore. And if there's something I want you to know, I'll definitely tell you. I was a bit startled at the way she worded the last sentence, but before I could say anything, she grabbed her plate and hurried upstairs with a cheerful, "See you later." After I returned from work, Leah was upstairs and didn't come out of her room. Not that I had time to talk to her, because Sandra and I have agreed to talk to Clara. I met up with Sandra before the two of us went to Clara's house. She looked surprised when she saw who was accompanying me. So, I cleared my throat before Clara could say anything. I suppose I should say that we're not going to any exhibition tomorrow? Yeah, I figured that out from the start, Clara replied. Are you going to tell me the truth now? So Sandra and I tried to explain the situation. You see, Clara, of course, knew I'm using her account and that I don't want Leah to know, but she didn't know why exactly I was doing that. Obviously, I had to tell her and Sandra, who didn't even know I was doing this, now. It took a long time. Clara went through several stages of disbelief, and she probably still thinks we're nuts. But she reluctantly agreed to give us a lift to Robert's house. When I came home, Leah was still in the living room, but disappeared into her room once she saw me. She didn't come out until dinner, and then disappeared upstairs again before I had a chance to talk to her. Not that I knew what to say anyway, but she was obviously avoiding me. I stayed up very late and listened to any signs that she was having another nightmare, or that something else was going on. But nothing happened, and eventually I fell asleep. And today, finally came the day Sandra and I are going to meet Robert Spaulding. We set off about an hour and a half ago, and we still have some time before we arrive. I'll keep you updated. Thank you, Spooks and Spookettes, for joining me for this reading. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I would really appreciate a like on this video. If you think you have a story for me to read, I will leave links below where you can send it. Also, look forward to reading any comments left down below. If you'd like to join me for more, there's always a subscribe and notification buttons that would really make my day. If you're not ready to subscribe just yet, I hope you will check out my other videos. Thanks again, and wishing you sweet nightmares.